Hey guys, welcome back to my channel Sociology with Mahima. In this video, we will discuss Unit 6 of MSO 1, Structure and Function. We will cover this unit in parts. In this part, we will talk about functionalism, emergence and core ideas of functionalism, synchronic versus disynchronic studies, structural functional approach of Radcliffe Brown, assumptions of structural functionalism, and functional unity, social health and social change. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe for more IGNOU and sociology related content. So let's get started. Functionalism is an important approach in social anthropology and sociology, which views society as a whole made up of interconnected parts, where each part plays a role in maintaining the entire system. The term function itself is derived from the Latin word fungi and functio, meaning to perform, serve, affect, or execute a purpose, indicating that every part of society performs a specific role. Functionalism first emerged in social anthropology in the early 20th century and later developed in sociology during the 1930s. The philosophical foundation of functionalism lies in positivism, which emphasizes scientific explanation and observable reality. The immediate forerunner of functionalism in sociology is Emile Durkheim, whose ideas deeply shaped later functionalist thought. Durkheim's definition of function had a tremendous influence on subsequent functionalists. For him, function refers to the contribution that a part makes to the whole for its maintenance and well-being, and therefore function is always understood as a positive contribution. By making such contributions, each part fulfills one or more needs of society. Durkheim was particularly concerned with demonstrating that the function of social facts is moral in nature. However, despite his foundational role, Durkheim is not a functionalist in the latest sense of the term, as used by the British social anthropologists like A. R. Radcliffe Brown and Bronislaw Malinowski. Although Durkheim clearly defines the concept of social function, he does not use the term functionalism himself. To understand functionalism, we must first understand why it emerged and what problems it was reacting against. Functionalism emerged as a reaction to 19th century evolutionary anthropology. Early anthropologists believed that all societies pass through the same fixed stages of evolution, from primitive to civilized. However, their work was highly speculative and conjectural. They often constructed theories about ancient societies without direct evidence, relying on imagination rather than observation. Functionalists strongly criticized this approach. They argue that you cannot scientifically explain society by guessing about its past. Functionalism developed mainly through the works of A. R. Radcliffe Brown and Bronislaw Malinowski. Together, they laid the foundation of what is known as the British functional approach in social anthropology. Although they differed in their specific ideas, both emphasized scientific study, empirical data, and present-day societies. A major shift introduced by functionalism was the movement away from studying origins and history of institutions. Instead of asking where did this institution came from, functionalists asked how does this institution function today. They focused on society here and now, examining how institutions like family, religion, economy, or kinship operate in the present and contribute to social life. Earlier anthropologists often worked from the desk, relying on travelers' account and second-hand information. This was known as armchair anthropology. Functionalists reject this completely. They emphasized direct fieldwork, living among the people, and observing daily life in natural settings. Malinowski, for example, lived among the Trobriand islanders, learning their language and customs firsthand. This made anthropology empirical and scientific. Functionalism aimed to understand what society is, not what it was. Functionalists believed that society can be studied scientifically, social institutions exist because they serve certain functions, and these functions help maintain social order, stability, and continuity. They focused on observation, comparison, and generalization rather than speculation. Functionalists did not completely reject change. They accepted that evolution and diffusion do occur in societies. However, they rejected the study of the past beyond on imaginary histories and speculation without empirical evidence. For them, Scientific explanation must be based on observable facts, not assumptions about ancient stages. Now let's understand the important distinction between diachronic and synchronic approaches to the study of society. The term diachronic refers to the study of society across time. Diachronic studies focus on the origins of social institutions, the evolutionary stages through which societies are believed to have passed, and how society developed from earlier to later forms. Classical evolutionary anthropologists mainly use this approach. They attempted to reconstruct the past history of societies, often by arranging cultures into evolutionary sequences, such as primitive to advanced, advanced to civilized. Functionalists did not reject the study of history completely. However, they strongly criticized diachronic studies when they were based on speculation, they relied on imaginative or conjectural history, and there was no direct empirical evidence. Functionalists argued that reconstructing the past without concrete data is unscientific and weak as an explanation of social life. In contrast, synchronic studies focus on society here and now. Instead of asking how an institution originated, synchronic analysis asks, how does this institution function today? What role does it play in maintaining social order? This approach examines the present structure of society, the interrelationship between social institutions, the functioning of norms, roles, and social practices in everyday life. With the rise of functionalism, there was a clear shift in social anthropology, from diachronic to synchronic, from speculative history to empirical observation, and from armchair anthropology to fieldwork-based research. Functionalists like Malinowski and Radcliffe Brown emphasized living among people, observing their daily lives, and studying society as an operating system in the present. This shift made sociology and anthropology more scientific, more empirical, and more reliable. By focusing on the present and using fieldwork, functionalists believed they could understand how societies actually work rather than how they are imagined to have evolved. Now let's understand Radcliffe Brown's contribution to sociology and social anthropology. Radcliffe Brown deliberately abandoned the earlier anthropological obsession with the origins of social institutions and the diffusion of customs from one society to another. He believed that such questions often led to speculation and could not be verified scientifically. Instead, he focused on society as it exists in the present, treating it as a functionally interrelated system. In other words, Radcliffe Brown was not interested in where institutions came from, but in how they work together now. Radcliffe Brown defined society as a system in which certain general laws or functions operate. These laws govern present social relations, not historical origins. Society for him is comparable to a natural system where different parts are connected and influence one another. This reflects his belief that social anthropology should function as a natural science of society. Radcliffe Brown was deeply influenced by Emile Durkheim, especially Durkheim's idea that social facts perform functions that maintain social order. However, Radcliffe Brown modified Durkheim's formulation. Instead of explaining institutions in terms of human needs, he used the concept of necessary conditions of existence. Thus, functions are not about satisfying needs, but about maintaining the conditions necessary for the continued existence of society. Radcliffe Brown strongly rejected the idea that every cultural institution must have the same function in all societies. He emphasized that the necessary conditions of existence vary across societies. What maintaining order in one society may not serve the same role in another. This made his approach comparative but non-reductionist, allowing for diversity in social systems. A central idea in Radcliffe Brown's theory is that structure and function cannot be separated. He argued that social structure becomes visible only when it's functioning. Structure is not an abstract blueprint. It is observed through actual functioning relationships. Thus, social relations, institutions, and roles reveal their structure through their functions in maintaining social life. Radcliffe Brown's structural functional approach rests on several key assumptions. First is Minimal integration is necessary. For a society to survive, there must be at least a minimum level of integration. Total disorder would make social life impossible. Second is function as a process. Functions are not static purposes but ongoing processes that maintain integration, promote solidarity, and ensure social continuity. Third is structural continuity. Structural features of society contribute to its continuity over time, persist even as individuals come and go. This explains how societies remain stable despite constant changes at the individual level. Radcliffe Brown disliked the term functionalism, which Malinowski used enthusiastically. He argued that ism represent ideologies, school of thought, philosophies, or opinions. According to him, science does not deal with ideologies, but with methods of study. A scientist should not have a passionate or dogmatic attachment to any single method. Methods are valued only for their operational usefulness in conducting scientific research. For this reason, Radcliffe Brown preferred to describe his approach as structural functional rather than functionalism. To understand structural functionalism, it is essential to first grasp the basic assumptions on which this perspective is built. These assumptions explain how society survives, maintains order, and remains stable over time. Structural functionalism begins with the assumption that no society can exist without a minimum level of integration among its parts. A society is made up of different institutions, such as family, religion, economy, law, and education. For society to survive, these parts must be linked together. They must operate in a coordinated and orderly manner. If the parts are completely disconnected or in conflict with one another, social life would collapse. Therefore, integration is not optional but a necessary condition for social existence. The concept of function in structural functionalism does not mean intention or purpose. Instead, it refers to social processes that help maintain the necessary integration or solidarity of society. In this sense, functions are processes, not goals. They operate continuously to keep society stable. For example, social norms, rituals, or institutions perform functions by reinforcing shared values and regulating behavior, thereby sustaining social cohesion. Structural functionalism assumes that the structural features of society, such as social roles, status systems, norms, and institutions, can be shown to contribute to the maintenance of solidarity and support the continued integration of society. These structures do not exist in isolation. Each structural element plays a role in reinforcing social cohesion and stability. Even when structures appear different across societies, they can be analyzed in terms of how they help sustain social order. An important clarification made by structural functionalists, especially Radcliffe Brown, is that functional unity or integration is not a fixed or dogmatic assumption. Instead, it is treated as a hypothesis. It must be empirically examined and tested, not assumed in advance. This means that researchers should not automatically assume perfect harmony in every society. They must study whether and to what extent integration actually exists. Radcliffe Brown's approach to functionalism is often misunderstood as seeing society as completely stable and unchanging. However, his ideas are more nuanced. Let us understand this step by step. Radcliffe Brown clearly states that functional unity or social integration is a hypothesis, not a fixed or unquestionable assumption. This means he does not claim that all societies are always perfectly integrated. Instead, he suggests that integration must be examined and tested empirically in each society. So, functional unity is an analytical tool, not a dogma. It helps sociologists study how far different parts of society work together at a given time. Radcliffe Brown's focus on integration and structural continuity does not deny social change. Many critics assume that functionalism ignores change, but Radcliffe Brown disagrees. Societies do change and transform over time. New institutions may emerge and old ones may weaken or disappear. However, even during periods of change, societies often retain basic patterns of relations, allowing continuity to exist alongside transformation. According to Radcliffe Brown, a society may undergo structural changes, yet still preserve continuity in its overall structure. This means that change does not automatically destroy social order. Instead, societies adjust and reorganize themselves while maintaining integration at a minimum level necessary for survival. To explain different social conditions, Radcliffe Brown uses a continuum between social health or eunomia and social illness or dysautonomia. Eunomia refers to a condition where social relations are relatively harmonious, well regulated and integrated, whereas dysautonomia refers to a condition where social relations are disrupted, disorganized, or weakened. Importantly, societies are not simply healthy or unhealthy. They exist at a different points along this continuum, depending on the level of integration and order present. That's all for today's video. Thank you for joining the class. If you like the class, please hit the like button. See you in the next video.